Who do you feel more safe around? A man or a bear? By now, we should all understand that this is a very silly question that doesn't make very logical sense, but the reasoning and the logic behind a question like this reveals what thoughts and values women truly have about men and themselves. So follow along with me in my philosophy and let's break down this question and see what is truly asking us. Now, for this question to even exist, it must first be under the assumption that man is truly more dangerous than a bear, which seems outlandish. But if you want to go down the line of logic of food chains and the invention of weapons and tools, then I guess you can say that, yeah, this is actually true. But I doubt this is an argument about men inventing weapons. Some women have even added the caveat of, would you trust your daughter in the woods with a random man or a bear? In order to try to get men to see what they actually see. And when they added this to the argument, it actually opened the door to what this question truly means. When we observe bears, they can destroy humans with very much ease. So we clearly understand that we're not more dangerous than they are. But maybe there's something that a man can do that a bear can't. So what type of danger are we talking about? A single bear has the power of about 5 men. They can destroy things with their paws that men could never do with their bare hands. So if they're so much more powerful than men, why are they being referred to as less dangerous? This shows that the fear a woman has of a bear and of a man is not the same. Even though a bear has more potential for physical harm, the man is still more dangerous in her eyes. So what type of danger are we really talking about when women say they feel safer around a bear than a man? Now, this may sound vague at first, but with this explanation, everything will start to make sense. So now we turn our attention to Google and ask, what are the top crimes that men commit against women? And one of the main results would be SA and RAP-E. This is why women choose the bear. But it also opens up more questions about womanhood and what their true value system is. Why come they never ask the question, would you feel safer in the forest with a bear or a man that you're romantically attracted to? I believe because it would expose more about their logic and their true value system than what meets the eye. What this question reveals is that they feel as if they were in a forest with a man, that man would more than likely try to engage intimately with them. And with no one around to protect her or to hold this man accountable, he will do his absolute worst to her. But this situation doesn't seem to be the same with the man that she's romantically attracted to. So, womb access activity is only okay when she's attracted to the man and he is of some value to her, which is totally understandable and fair. But the activity of womb access shows us that this is the point of power for a woman. And once that is taken away from her, she feels powerless and worthless. It is essentially her bargaining chip. Womb access for money is a very lucrative business and has been for a very long time. The reason being that, a woman's lady part is commodity or leverage. They are the more beautiful gender, of course. So, so much so that even other women fall for their beauty. But this is also why I believe that women would often lie about the number of people they've granted womb access to in order to protect their leverage in the dating market and get the most out of their commodity, which is basically them practicing a form of bodily capitalism. And I believe that this is the female power that they often talk about that they have over the world. But this also kind of lets me know why they hate government regulations and ruling on abortion. Because it pretty much turns their bodily capitalism into a form of bodily socialism, where another group gets to determine how they use their womb. I understand this is completely devoid of emotion and makes it seem as if I'm just reducing women to their parts, but we really need to start speaking truth to power. I understand that there is more to a woman's selection of womb access holders than just pure trade, but we have to be honest and say that there is a form of trade that does take place. It does now. That doesn't even make you a bad person for engaging in this form of trade. It makes you human, a human who tries to get the best of what they can with what they've been given. The only problem that I start to see is when in this case, when women start to artificially inflate their value on said dating market and try to do a form of unfair trade. And I think that if you're going to be engaging in this form of trade or any form of trade, the trade needs to be fair. And I think as long as the trade is fair, I think that's all anybody would really care about. When a man gets canceled, they often lose their ability to make a living. And being a poor man in society can sometimes be seen as a fate worse than death. What women show us with this multi-layered question is that rap E to them is often seen as a fate worse than death. I guess that it has a similar effect to how men feel when their livelihoods are taken away from them. So now that we truly understand the premise of this argument, will women admit that this is why they proposed the question in the first place? I think they wouldn't give a straightforward answer. The reason is that there is a power to keeping things mysterious and vague. It makes it easier to inflate prices, offer discounts to certain customers that you like, and extend a product's shelf life beyond its due date. And not to reduce women to their lady parts at all, but to start stripping away some of the mystique. But when you pull back the curtain and expose how the Matrix truly operates, it takes a bit of power away from them yet again, reducing the leverage they have in the dating market. Now, don't get me wrong. And, while there are some red pill men that are complete and utter garbage bag juice, I kind of believe that this is why women are so against that type of content. They remove the fog and the mystique from the dating market, and they get men to see things the way in which women actually do. A capitalistic system. And a capitalistic system in which they try to maximize their own personal gains and even get to enjoy some of those personal gains while still being able to keep the maximum amount of value for their product. To my women, start learning about your market customers and what is in demand. Separate how much trade value your parents, grandparents, and favorite social media personalities have gotten from dating, and focus on you and your current market where you currently reside. And whatever your market deems in demand, do your best to try to abide by that. And if you don't have what the market deems in demand, look to what you can do and what you can work on, and even try to find ways to subsidize yourself on the market. Now, I want you to look up, on Google, the benefits of subsidizing your products. And the reason is because we're in much harder times for men than back in the day. Prices are unbelievably high. Jobs are laying everybody off. There's way more work competition. Employers have absolutely no loyalty. Degrees don't guarantee any kind of wealth. And education is locked behind sky-high paywalls, and a lot of men grew up without their fathers. So expecting the same level of quality man from the past, it starts to seem unrealistic. Now, I'm not saying for you to just get with any old body. I would definitely not encourage that. But start looking at things differently and look at more so characteristic, morals, hobbies, interests, rather than looks or attractiveness. Not saying that it doesn't matter, but maybe it shouldn't matter as much. Or potential monetary status or monetary status in general, and womb access activities. And also, oftentimes I hear a lot of women getting into relationships that are based on trauma bonds or some form of trauma reenactment. And when it comes to subsidizing yourself, you can do that in a few ways, like working on a pleasant attitude, being less combative, becoming healthier and or slimmer, dressing more intentionally and appropriately, and developing morals and philosophies that are conducive to a healthy person and relationship. And listen to men and what they want, but not pandering men who just want to tell you what you want to hear. Sincere men that'll tell you what men's shortcomings are, and what your shortcomings are, and how to do something with that. Not just celebrity men, but average, above average, below average men, because we're all men and we all matter. Not only just the attractive men, but even men you may not find that aesthetically pleasant. And to my men, understand that this question sounds crazy to us, and that's because it is. But we don't deal with what women deal with, so of course it wouldn't make sense to us. We need to learn how to read between the lines when women say certain things like this that sound crazy. They say things from more of an emotional standpoint than from a logical understanding. They feel the same way we feel when we talk to them using data, evidence, and stats. It sounds weird to them. Not all of them, of course, but a good portion of them. I'll say the majority. And with this dating market not being in the best possible shape for men to, perform like men back in the day, it still isn't an excuse for you not to try to make something of yourself. Read between the lines, see, and what women say, and see what it is that, they want as well. That's, realistic, of course. And, see what they really go for and what their values are, and, adjust yourself based on what their value is in the dating market as well, and adjust yourself accordingly. And, also, you may need to subsidize yourself as well. Now, although we may not have had our fathers like that and other things that we've dealt with, their mothers weren't all that great either. There are plenty of stories I've heard from women who had horrible experiences with their own mothers. So I think they'll need the same time to learn and adjust to bettering themselves just as much as you do. So allow some grace on their side that you would also appreciate having for yourself as well. And to subsidize yourself, there's a lot of value in how you look too. It may not, of course we're not the, fairer sex, but we can still work on our appearance and, grooming and working out and whatnot. Being interested in things and hobbies more than just video games and anime. And, although, financial bankroll and, balling out of control ain't happening, but at least having some form of financial literacy, and also putting in some effort to read between the lines with women and learn how they communicate. Give them something that they, could, have on their arm and be like, hey, I got him, I got something too. I got something good. Because everybody want to feel like they got a prize. So make sure that you make yourself a prize for them as well as they make themselves a prize to you, so everybody can feel like they got something. And also listen to men who are actually healed or are actually healing. Because a lot of, men will often get on the internet and talk about things from a very hurt perspective rather than a balanced perspective, and are typically just doing it for their own personal gain. And I would definitely recommend not listening to men who seem like they're only talking about things from their own personal perspective for gain. And all in all, I believe that with fair trade, all of these things being met, and people becoming more whole and balanced within themselves and throughout the world, I believe that nobody would feel the need to even ask a question like, who do you feel safer around, a man or a bear? Because there won't be a need for people to feel like they have something to lose in the sense of asking that type of question. And as always, I'm very interested into hearing what it is that you guys have to say with, all of these things that I provided, especially with tackling this issue, although it's very late, but, better late than never. So go ahead and let me know. I'll definitely welcome the debate in the comment section. And I want to leave y'all with some personal philosophy. Duality and balance are the keys to life. Peace.